Tonight, I wanted to bring in Rachel. I've seen her from the distance on television, and I was very impressed the way she presented herself as a reporter and how she came across on camera professionally, and just the way she put her packages together that I seen. Um, you know, were very professional, especially for being her, a young woman in the industry coming up. And I figured, let me bring her in tonight and she can give you guys some pointers. So, Rachel, welcome.
Hey, so hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Vinny, thank you so much for the warm welcome and the invitation. So I'm from the Boston area originally. I started my career in TV news in a small town in Hagerstown, Maryland. I worked there for 2 years, and most people don't know this, but as a multimedia journalist, I did all of the work in front of and behind the camera. So I really appreciated Vinny saying that he liked the packages because I shot, edited, and put them all together. So I met Vinny, I guess, when I was working in Pennsylvania. I was there in Pottsville for 2 years. Then I lived in Texas for another year. And the cool thing about that station was the fact that they had just launched the station there. So I was a part of the first morning crew. And then after a year there, I decided to take a pivot and I worked at a technology company that had a news team. And I was like the face of their company. So after that, I was laid off. And then now I am a media coach. So I teach people how to create high quality content that sells. So it's a little bit of media, it's a little bit of sales. I kind of do everything because that's what I know as a reporter.
Right. Now, some of us in the room, like Art and Pete, have editing experience. But if maybe one day they said, you know what, let me jump into becoming a multimedia journalist, how much of the editing is really involved? Because a lot of those packages we see are usually 90 seconds to maybe 3 minutes as the latest.
Yeah. So I would say that the average is 90 seconds. Um, I think news is it's kind of like cooking, right? Like you spend hours doing something and then like 10 minutes of eating, right? Or like a minute and a half of what you see. The time it takes can range. I could edit a package in like 10 minutes if I needed to, but I would like to give myself at least an hour to do the editing. But there are some ways that you can work around it. I call it editing in the field. So if you know exactly what you want to shoot and how you want to tell that story, you give yourself the game plan to just place it by the time that editing process comes into play.
Right. Now, you have no experience of doing short films yourself, or have you done that? No.
No, I think maybe the longest story I've ever done was 10 minutes, and that felt like an eternity to me.
Nice. So I think it is important for even editors that have to shoot their own content, is to, in a way, visualize what they want to shoot, what they want to edit before they start shooting, right?
Yeah. So one method that I learned that has been a game changer for me, and I really do believe it kind of models a movie. It's by Michael Rosenblum was the founder of this. And it's basically you need 5 shots to tell a story. And those 5 shots would be one is the establishing, which gives you the placement. The next one is a closer shot, a shot of like a tight shot of it could be your hands, your eyes. Eyes are great because it makes all emotion. Then over the shoulder, and then another angle.
Or
Um,
we could tell that one was your favorite.
yes, it definitely was because it gives you a guaranteed 5 shots. And if you do that in each scene that you're at, you really don't run out of time. And then you get the variety that you need to tell the story.
Right, exactly. Now, for actors that are thinking, oh gosh, like even for me, growing up in Northern California, everyone would say, oh, Vinny, you'd be a great reporter. You'd be great in front of the camera, behind. And I always thought, but man, news is so depressing. Like I've seen you in the past where it's like reporting on 6 o'clock in the morning, a fire broke out and someone passed away. Then 20 minutes later, you have to pivot and be like, hey, a fireman just rescued a cat, like, and just change the emotion quick. But do you suggest that, like, maybe actors might break that ice and try to jump into it because it could help them with their acting in the long run?
Yeah, I think that acting and reporting are kind of like hand in hand because at the end of the day, you're conveying emotion on screen. So, and when you are a reporter, you really have to think about how do you want your audience to feel when you're delivering. So, even to the point where I considered taking acting classes well, during my time as a reporter, and I really felt like that would help me improve my delivery.
Right. Now, what I noticed when you were in Pennsylvania, you were with a NBC and a CBS affiliate. Now,
Mhm.
throughout the country, is that as common or is that unique?
Yeah, because there's companies that own these stations and they own a variety of stations, so it's really not uncommon. And each market just looks very different. Like in the Boston area, we had a Fox affiliate and an NBC affiliate. Both of those stations ended up losing the affiliates, and then they opened up two new stations that have Fox and CBS now. I mean, Fox and NBC. So now we have six stations, which is more than like the average market. So it really depends on the company and just kind of the area. They're always moving things around and shifting.
Right. So usually on the day-to-day basis for multimedia journalists, they're researching, they're answering emails, phone calls, networking, and they're trying to balance it all. And then on top of that, they got to go out with their camera. Sometimes it's with a camera operator, sometimes it's not. And tell us about some of those challenges where it's like it's just you on the field.
Yeah, that was probably it was a blessing and a curse, right? Because when you're out there by yourself, you run into so many problems, right? And you learn how to be so adaptable, like to look at different angles at all times. I always had a plan A to Z. And when those wrenches came, I was just able to dodge them. But at the same time, it gives you the real power to have control over your stories where working with somebody else is great. You get to you know, bounce ideas off of each other, sometimes problem solve together. But then it's like, man, I didn't like the way the editor shot. I mean, the photographer shot that. And now we're here and now we're just at editing. Or it might take a little bit more time because they edited it the way I didn't like it, you know? Or sometimes they're not as helpful when it comes to problem solving. And they're kind of like, that's not my job. I'm just
Right,
here to shoot and edit. So it's it's a 50-50 bittersweet, but I've learned to appreciate both sides of it.
right. That's always fun. You get to be a little bit creative when it comes to the editing. With the reporting, yeah, you got to got to stick to the script. And speaking of a script, once you go out and you shoot a story, then maybe in the 6 o'clock hour, the evening news, or 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, depending on the demographics of when the air times are, you might have to reappear in front of the camera again and present. And usually that's done in front of a teleprompter. Now, learning the teleprompter for actors is a good tool because going back to what you were talking about is conveying emotion. Tell us how difficult it was for you to, in the early days, to learn the prompter for you.
Oh yeah, that was actually one of my biggest challenges. I've actually had a voice coach because it's really hard because you're thinking about so much, right? How am I coming off? Do I remember my script? Do I know it well enough, even to the point where, sure, the words are in front of me, but am I connecting to it on a personal note? So even though I wrote it and saw it, I'm still conveying that emotion because it's so easy to get in your head and get tangled in the words and just like, I'm just going to get this done as quickly as I can because I have this time slot and there's a million other things that I'm also thinking about. to prepare for the next live shot or whatever the case may be. So it comes with a lot of challenges. I think that people don't think it's as hard as it is until they're in front of the prompter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only that, you got to worry about what you're wearing, what you're presentable, and sometimes, I mean, we have Dominica in here who loves fashion, so she might like this. Is with your experience, Rachel, did you kind of even have time to think about, well, should I wear a dark color for a dark story? Should I wear a bright, vivid color for this? Or you just said, this is in my closet. I'm wearing this on Tuesday. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I even got critiqued when I went to a conference because it was a story about flooding, and I wore a dress with boots. And she was like, that doesn't look like you were covering a flooding. And she was like, you need to keep clothes in your car to match the scene that you're at. So there's that. But no, I did not. Most of the times, um, because one thing is that I didn't mention is that a lot of times we were getting that assignment like maybe 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we just knew that we had to get something on air by 5 o'clock, sometimes earlier. So we were counting, we were against the clock from the moment our shift started every day. So a lot of times if I wasn't ready for work, that's what they were going to get on TV because I had so many other things to juggle.
You're like wearing a dress and you're like, yeah, there's a snowstorm in like 5 minutes.
Right. And we gotta jet and find the place that has the worst part of it. So I can tell you guys, don't leave your house.
Nice. That's great. Now, you've been in different markets, you've worked in sports, weather, headline news, breaking news, even national news at some levels. And is there a favorite that you have, or do you kind of just love covering anything?
Yeah, I'm definitely more on the entertainment side. So I'm so happy to be working with you. I love feel good stories. I think that breaking news, hard news is important and I see the value in it, but it's not quite my forte.
Right. Well, let some of you guys ask Rachel questions that maybe you always wondered while you're watching the morning news, or some of the other challenges that she has faced. So, does
Do
anyone?
you know the audio equipment that they give you as a news broadcaster? Like what type of microphone you're using, like brand?
No, I don't. Sorry.
No, so that
um, we usually use lavaliers that attach to the um
Okay,
yeah, the cameras that we had.
okay. Just curious about brand name equipment or
Yeah, that I don't. Cameras I could tell you. I've
sure.
used like
Yeah,
JVC.
we're all into the camera. What particular camera was used most when you were operating?
Camcorder style for sure. The JVC 700 and 650 were pretty popular. And then there was a Sony camera that was smaller than the JVC. I don't remember the model, but that I preferred the Sony over the JVC.
Okay, cool.
there you go. Now,
I
Jess,
have a
yeah,
question.
yeah, go
Oh, go
ahead,
ahead,
Jess.
Mindy. What were you going to say?
No, I was hoping that you would jump in and ask something. So go ahead.
Yeah. Just wanted to ask you, Rachel, just as far as like, being a woman and being, in the media and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm someone that is kind of coming into this when I was back in the day. I was just starting out and then I went, out of it. And so coming back into this, how would you describe like how things have changed or like how things are like as far as, women being in media and things like that, the challenges or can you just explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, so I love that question. I was very fortunate to work around a lot of women in the newsrooms that I worked in, but I definitely did experience difficulties, maybe sometimes having male news directors, like being in the field by yourself can be very dangerous. Even when it came to sometimes even like the criticism from viewers, um, that was difficult. Also, just finding the rhythm because I got critiqued more for my looks than I think a man would get critiqued for. Like and this was a woman news director that told me, based on the way I dressed, that I looked like I was more worried about what I was going to do on a Friday night than reporting. So I think that in some ways we can be doing better in that area, but I also was very fortunate to work around a lot of women that had empathy and we could talk about those things.
I love that. I love how you said about having empathy. And I think that's really what it comes down to, right? Just being able to just, show kindness, show empathy to others. And I think it's hard when people don't, because I mean, the empathy, it's something that you've been through and you feel. And I think there needs to be a lot more people out there that can demonstrate that and can, just show that. So thank you so much for expressing that, especially, it's just, you hear all these things and it's like, you just want to see what it's really like from someone that's been in, doing it, especially in your position of actually, delivering these, news stories and things like that and being in the middle of everything. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And one thing I would like to add is that when that woman said what she said to me, there was another woman later on who said, well, if you wear something like that, maybe less earrings. And there's a way to deliver what you're trying to say. But sometimes, like you said, with the empathy, it's just sometimes it's the way you say it that makes sense.
Is there any like story that you covered where you were out in the field that stands out to you, like good or bad, or you feel like, you know what, we learned a lot there, even the camera guy had to change things up or
Yeah, probably countless stories. But one story in particular that just came to me right away, and this was when I was probably only a reporter for a month. And there was a hospital that was being built. And the whole heart behind it was this guy's mother passed away from cancer, or it wasn't a hospital, but it was a hospice center. And he wanted to dedicate this hospice center to his mom. And just like a month or two before construction was finished and they were about to open, it burned to the ground. And they had to scrap everything and start from scratch. And I had gotten the interview with the son, and it was like maybe months later, almost a year later, and I got to come to the grand opening again. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember interviewing with me. And he was like, I could not remember who the reporter was, but I just want to thank you so much for spending that time with me and talking to me. And I'm so like, he thanked me for being there. And I think that put into perspective with like how important reporting is and the impact that you have. And also, like I said, carrying the empathy when you go into these tragic situations, because people are really at their worst moments in life. And it's my job to tell the story and to provide some sort of help to them by telling the story.
Thank you. Well, that was thank you for sharing. That was a great story. I could definitely see how that could make you better as like a reporter, but even just a, person to help you realize things and so.
Yeah, because it's really easy to be focused on the job and the task at hand, but what you need to focus on is the people and how they're being impacted.
I'm wondering how much I mean, obviously I think you would know, okay, I'm going to go here. This is what's going on. But how much of like a script do you really have for like, questions that you're going to be asking? And then, as answers get said, like, I mean, to kind of go off script for a while, or, I mean, are you like, okay, no, I'm like on a timer, or like kind of how does it work for you? Just, since I was like, man, like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just winging it, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, of course. So the thing is that when we have an idea, of course, we want things to go as planned, but you have to always be open to the story changing or the angle changing. So I would go in with like a couple of conversation starters, but every time I did an interview, my goal was to keep it as much like a regular conversation as possible. And that definitely means going off script. I would write scripts to put in the newscast. So that's me like putting the story together that's my script. But yeah, when it comes to interviews, you have to be open because you may uncover a way better story than you even imagined just by letting that person freely speak.
Ah, I see. So when you would go to these places to interview someone, you'd have kind of like, okay, this is kind of what I want to ask, but then you would just kind of go with the flow and see whatever happens.
Yes. And during my interviews, I'm constantly trying to build trust with this person because the more they trust me with the questions that I ask, the more they're going to reveal to me and explain to me what the story is. So, yeah, definitely keeping things open, trying to ask open-ended questions as much as possible, and really get an understanding of them so that I'm able to properly tell their story.
Afterwards, you would then write a script. Is that what I'm understanding? Because I'm a little confused on like the script part.
That makes sense. So, most of my interviews were not live. I would go out and I'd get an assignment. This is what your topic is. I would go out there and find the best sources that I could to tell that story, write and edit the story, and then I would present it live. So sometimes I would do live interviews, and that can be a little different. But a lot of times for timing wise in the newscast, we always had scripts. Even if you do go off of script, everybody's on the same page of like what, for the most part, it's going to look like.
Now, I thought it would be fun. So we're almost going to conclude. So I thought maybe this could finish everyone up, but it will take a little bit of time. So in television, there's a thing called slating, where often when you're doing an audition, usually you say your name, and it kind of helps the audience kind of remember you or the casting directors or whatnot. And Rachel, I've heard you say it a million times, your first and last name and whatever affiliate you were with at the end of your package before sending it back to the anchors. So I thought, since Rachel has all these years of experience, we'll go around the room and let's see, how about XYZ? All right. So I'm going to start us off and we're going to go around the room. I'll call out your name and you guys will basically repeat after me. And then at the end, we'll turn it back to Rachel and we'll see how everyone does. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, hey, for XYZ News, this is Vinny Langdon reporting. All right, Jessica.
Hey, this is Jessica Lisette. I'm here on the island of Maui. It's a beautiful weather today, and I'm just enjoying a little Mai Tai over here and looking at the beautiful view. And I just got in touch with CJ. CJ, how you doing over there?
I'm great. Over here, it's nice and blurry in the background, so we're going to have a wonderful day.
Beautiful. All right, CJ.
Hi, this is CJ, and I'm here in beautiful New York City. As you can tell, it's a very blurry day and it's hard to see, but I think that there's going to be some exciting things going on during the course of the day. Hey, we haven't met Art. Hey, Art, what have you got to say about today?
This is Art based in San Antonio, Texas. In this hot weather, it just keeps getting hotter and hotter. So with the heat, I'm going to pass it on. Back to Vinny.
Nice. And hey, Pete, how's it going over there on Staten Island on the other side?
Oh, not too bad. This is Pete Gallo here. I'm trying not to get too mad over the humidity, but I'm getting used to it now, so just trying to enjoy my time here in Staten Island, New York.
Beautiful. Dominica, we're
Hi,
we're ha
Dominica.
we're having video feed issues, but hey, we can hear you.
This is Dominica Herrera with ABC News, live here in San Antonio, Texas. Our
Ooh,
day was 101 degrees, and our low will be 77. Hope you have a fabulous day. Thank you.
Wow, I feel like I just heard Good Morning San Antonio. Very cool. So, Rachel, what do you think, especially putting all these on them on the spot?
Oh, you guys, come on. We can all work in news.
I see Art doing weather and Dominica doing weather, and Pete seems like the sports guy, and
Jessica gave us a great live shot.
Yeah, on location.
Yeah,
nice. That was
yeah,
fun.
it's been great.
Yeah. So, I wanted to remind all of you guys, of course, if you want to make a film, maybe you can make a parody of the Anchorman because we kind of just started it. You guys
That'd
can
be fun.
submit on the film festival website, filmfreeway.com/Staten Island Summer of Shorts. All the submission guides and rules are over there. And I know we'll have Rachel. She's going to be involved a little bit more. We'll be having her do some promos in the fall and keep on doing whatever you want to do.
Thank you all. See you guys next time.